hopefully I bring a little bit different viewpoint. Dealer Socket touches just over 10,000 automotive dealerships. We're certainly dealer first in all of the lending and financing aspect, but also part of me loves the idea of online retailing, fast-moving transactions, everything Amazon from my background and that I'm used to. So go ahead and go over to the next slide. During this time of COVID, I know we're all missing sports a little bit, so included a video here. I'm not sure how many of you saw it, but it went viral. Sports Center posted it on their Instagram page just this week, and it's called The Final Countdown. And it was a short clip, but it was actually of a dealership on location. It was Nissan, and a customer was racing the salesman that he had been working with all day for a final discount on a vehicle. And it was just hilarious. They end up falling down at the end, racing, and you step back, and after the funny video, you say, wow, is this the consumer experience that we're creating for customers, where it's a race for their discount on, one of the largest purchases that they'll make, outside of their home. And they do things very differently. And if you just advance to the next animation on this, it'll bring up, kind of the competitor or disruptor that we're really facing in the market, and the Carvanas and Vrooms that cater to a very different experience. And that's why I'd like to talk a little bit about today, is seizing that experience in digital retailing and online retailing. What a lot of the folks on the call today as lenders and financiers can do as they work with dealerships and as they go direct to consumer. Next slide. So Dealer Socket powered or teamed up with Google and JD Power, their PIN information network, last year, and surveyed 2,000 customers that had recently bought a vehicle within the last 12 months. And then we also surveyed our 10,000 dealerships to get a dealership view of the digital retailing process and then the consumer view. I think we all know that the digital retailing, online retailing process inside dealerships leaves something to be desired for most consumers. The opening question of the survey to these 2,000 consumers was, do you enjoy the car buying process? 81% of those said no. And if you'll go to the next animation, I think what was really telling on that is if you followed the stock prices of Carvana and Vroom since IPO, consumers are really driving towards a different experience. Next slide. Perhaps the most telling point was the next question that got into the why behind consumer frustrations. Again, this is Google Analytics survey. They ask, what don't you like about the car buying process? And you see there's a blue bar and a black bar here. The blue bar indicates the consumer responses, how they stack rank these items. The black bar represents the dealer's perception of what they feel like consumers don't like about the car buying process. So very interesting, different take. You can see some general alignment, but then also discrepancies. Almost a third of auto dealers think that consumers' time is everything. It's too time consuming. They're trying to get them through, get them in the box. But for consumers, it was really about trust. Time was still up there, but it was really, very different things that were driving them. If you go to the next animation, I think several of these answers really draw out what I'd like to hit on today. You think about some of the top reasons here. They either don't trust salespeople, it's too time consuming, the negotiation process, or pressure to buy. When I look and think about digital retailing, all of those things, call it 80% of what consumers don't like about the car buying process, can really be solved with a streamlined and smooth digital retailing process. So I'd just like to introduce 3 concepts as far as your interactions integrating with software providers and vendors in the automotive space or whatever industry that you're in as you're going direct to consumers. And then also as you're going direct yourselves, things to consider in how you craft that digital and online process. As just a side anecdote, I went back to the office for the first time this week after being shut down in COVID, and I came home, and kind of to my surprise, the front door was just stacked with packages. It looked like it was, Christmas. And so I joked with my wife one day at the office, and she's trying to sneak all that stuff through. But you compare the digital retailing process in automotive with something similar to Amazon, where they make one-click buying and other processes so streamlined and easy. So let me jump into this a little bit. Number one, streamlined online to in-store experience. The next question, a couple down, that Google presented after this was to consumers, if you had the option, would you like to purchase completely online? Only 1/3 of consumers said yes, I want it completely online. I don't want to touch a dealership. I don't want to do anything. Lots of people see tremendous value going into the dealership, seeing the vehicle, touching it, feeling it, trust driving it, finding out more in the education process. All of those things they enjoy. So really, in crafting a digital retail and consumer engagement, whether you're in automotive or any other industry, a seamless online and in-store experience is very important. You can't have them fill out a credit application or a vehicle of interest selection online, show up in the showroom, and not have that connect. Have to rekey in information, have to reselect vehicle. There has to be a warm greeting, an acknowledgement of the work that they did online, filling out loan applications or getting pre-qualified. They can't start that process over. Vice versa, if they stop by a showroom on their way home from work or everything else like that and do part of the process, they have to be able to pick up exactly where they left off in that process online. And one other thing I would just add to that, kind of from our view, dealing with most other consumer retail brands like Nordstrom, Amazon, anything else really like that, when we talk about digital retailing process, there's a lot more complexities in automotive, trade-in, tax rates, other financing, signatures, all the things like that. For consumers and from a millennial standpoint, if you can just nail the customer interaction piece of having that being able to be enabled completely online, they're fine with whatever else. If other docs or uploading needs to happen at the dealership, titling processes that need to be finished, or other post-sale indirect lending aspects, that's all fine. But as long as what the consumers can do online can be done as far as the purchase process, that's the key. And I think people are feeling that with Rocket Mortgage, where so much of the mortgage process, a massive purchase, can be done online. They question why automotive isn't more simple. I think that's where you see Carvana and Vroom really specializing in getting the experience right. Moving on to the next point, number 2, enable viewing. Oh, sorry, go back just one more, just point number 2. Enabling viewing, completion, and then reference all online. This is something that I think folks like Tesla do extremely well with their consumer portal. They allow customers to view everything, complete everything, and then post-sale reference everything in a customer hub or portal online. That's very important. It's something you should push very hard on the vendors that you're working with to complete, to make sure that they have, and it's something that consumers are demanding. And then the last piece, number 3, integrated and matching data sets. The other piece on the Google study that came out as a keen data point, and one of the biggest frustrations that bred mistrust, was when data didn't match. They went online and shopped for a vehicle, and either it was, a cursory view of payment and price that didn't have taxes and fees, didn't have incentives and other financing opportunities, and when they went into the store, it was different. And even if it was just a couple dollars off, they just didn't understand that process, and it bred mistrust, and it made them skeptical for the rest of the buying process. As much as you can drive that through real-time integrations, real-time online pre-qualifications with the vendors and tools that you're using, and then once they get in the showroom or once they're finalizing that deal, to have a penny-perfect match, very important aspect of that. Just one last anecdotal piece that comes from a friend of mine just in the car industry that I was just talking to. He's a millennial as well, on a group text with a dozen or so members of his family, and one of them who's 30, going through a rough time in marriage, going through a divorce, and how he let his family know was on a group text. And that was just shocking to him. He just couldn't fathom that millennials in this day, something as significant or important as that. And what was equally shocking was the response. Nobody called him. It was all text message and emoji responses, broken hearts. And he couldn't fathom. And so there's a segment of this millennial population out there, when they're shopping, that's what they're accustomed to. It's what they were bred with. We have to refine that process so that they can engage remotely and then come into the store when they feel comfortable. Some things they do, some things they don't. And flexibility is the key. If the digital retailing process is stringent and saying you have to do this part online or you have to do that in the showroom, it will fail. If we're flexible and allow autonomy for the consumer, do what you want, where you want, I think it'll succeed. And so that's what I'll leave with you today. Last slide, just as we conclude. Again, thanks so much for having me. There's no doubt that, especially with COVID, it has propelled dealers. We've seen them reluctant to change, but through this virus and pandemic, all of them have reached out. It's the most interest in any of our software suite that we're getting. They're concerned with digital, how they're handling it. Their minds are open and they're realizing they have to address it. Any questions, happy to answer. And again, partnerships@dealersocket.com if anybody has any questions or follow-up or would be interested in having this data.